You light a candle. You walk past a barbecue and breathe in that thick, charred smell without thinking twice. You've stood next to a bonfire, eyes stinging, throat catching, and stayed anyway because something about it felt oddly good. Smoke is one of the only toxic substances humans routinely choose to breathe on purpose. Here's the question nobody asks. When did that start? Not campfires for warmth, not cooking fires for food. The moment humans began inhaling smoke deliberately, recreationally, ritually, for the sensation itself, rather than as a byproduct of staying alive. Because that moment exists, and it's older, stranger, and more universal than almost anyone assumes. Let's find out how it happened. Start with fire itself, because you can't smoke before you can burn. Controlled fire use goes back at least 1 million years, evidenced by burned bone and ash layers at sites in Africa. But controlling fire and inhaling its smoke on purpose are two different behaviors, separated by a long stretch of time and a specific cognitive leap. For most of that 1 million years, smoke was simply something humans tolerated, an unavoidable side effect of the thing that kept them warm and cooked their food. Nobody was chasing the smoke itself. That changes somewhere in the deep past, and the evidence for exactly when is frustratingly indirect because smoke doesn't fossilize. What survives is the material evidence around it: charred plant residue in enclosed spaces, specialized tools, ritual objects, and that evidence points towards something remarkable. Deliberate smoke inhalation likely predates agriculture, predates writing, predates almost everything we associate with civilization. The first strong candidate isn't tobacco, it's incense. Archaeological sites across the ancient Near East, dating back over 5,000 years, show evidence of resin burning in enclosed ritual spaces specifically to produce smoke, not heat. Frankincense and myrrh, harvested from trees native to the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, were burned in temples and tombs long before either substance had any culinary use. The smoke itself was the product. People build architecture around containing and directing it. This wasn't cooking. This wasn't warmth. This was smoke as a deliberate sensory and spiritual technology. Why would anyone do that? The answer sits at the intersection of biology and belief. Burning resin releases aromatic compounds that interact directly with the olfactory system in ways plain air never does. Some of those compounds, frankincense included, have been shown in modern research to have mild psychoactive effects, interacting with receptors in the brain associated with mood regulation. Ancient people had no concept of receptors. What they had was the observed effect. Breathe this smoke and something in you shifts. That was reason enough to build a religion around it. But incense is smoke for ceremony, not for the individual chasing a sensation. For that, you have to go further to the plant itself and to the Americas specifically, where tobacco tells a very different story. Genetic and archaeological evidence places tobacco use in the Americas at least 12,000 years ago, possibly earlier, making it one of humanity's oldest known deliberate smoke habits. Charred tobacco seeds and residue on pipe fragments from sites across the Americas show that tobacco wasn't discovered as a farming crop first and smoked later. The relationship ran the other way. Tobacco was likely smoked, chewed, or otherwise consumed for its effects long before anyone thought to cultivate it deliberately. The same pattern seen with many plants that eventually became crops. Humans noticed the effect first. Domestication follows. And the effect of tobacco is not subtle. Nicotine is one of the most efficient plant-derived stimulants available in nature, crossing into the bloodstream through the lungs within seconds of inhalation, reaching the brain faster than almost any other method of drug delivery humans have ever discovered, intentionally or not. Ancient peoples across the Americas didn't know the word nicotine. They knew that inhaling this particular smoke produced alertness, then calm, then, in higher doses, something closer to altered consciousness entirely. That last effect mattered enormously. Many indigenous American cultures used concentrated tobacco specifically to induce visionary or trance states in ritual and shamanic contexts. Not casual daily use, but deliberate, high-dose ceremonial smoking meant to push consciousness somewhere else. This wasn't recreational in the modern sense. It was medicinal, spiritual, and social all at once, often restricted to specific individuals within a community rather than practiced universally. This is the pattern worth pausing on, because it repeats across almost every ancient smoking culture we have evidence for. Deliberate smoke inhalation rarely starts as a private habit. It starts as a shared, often sacred act, tightly bound to ritual, healing, or communal decision-making, and only later drifts towards something closer to individual daily use. You see the same structure on the other side of the planet independently. Across sub-Saharan Africa and parts of Asia, archaeological and ethnobotanical evidence shows cannabis smoke being used in ritual and medicinal contexts for thousands of years, with burnt cannabis residue found in ancient burial and ceremonial sites in Central Asia dating back roughly 2,500 years. Braziers containing charred cannabis seeds, found sealed inside tombs, show stones heated specifically to vaporize the plant material in an enclosed space, essentially an ancient smoking chamber built for the dead and presumably for the living who used similar methods while alive. Different continent, different plant, same underlying human behavior. Build an enclosed space, introduce heat, inhale the result, attach the whole practice to something sacred. Why does this pattern show up independently, again and again, across cultures with no contact with each other? Because smoke does something specific to the human brain that has nothing to do with culture and everything to do with biology. Inhaled compounds bypass digestion entirely, crossing from lungs to bloodstream to brain in a matter of seconds, producing effects faster and more intensely than eating or drinking the same substance ever could. Ancient humans, without any chemistry, discovered the single fastest delivery mechanism the human body offers for altering its own state. Fire simply happened to be the tool that made it accessible. There's also a more practical thread running underneath all of this, easy to overlook. Smoke was medicine long before it was ritual or recreation, in the way we'd recognize either term. Burning specific herbs and inhaling the resulting fumes to treat respiratory illness, wounds, and infection shows up across nearly every ancient medical tradition that left written or archaeological records. From Ayurvedic texts in South Asia to traditional Chinese medicine to indigenous American healing practices, some of that plant matter, when burned, released compounds with genuine antimicrobial or bronchodilating properties. Ancient healers had no germ theory. What they had was outcome. This smoke helps this illness. Repeat it. So when did ancient humans start smoking? In the sense the question actually means deliberately, for the effect, not the byproduct. The honest answer is that it happened independently, multiple times, on multiple continents. The moment humans encountered a plant whose burned smoke did something noticeable to the body or mind. Not one invention. A convergent discovery made over and over by people with no communication with each other. Because the underlying biology, human lungs, human bloodstream, human brain, is the same everywhere. What's genuinely striking is how consistently ancient cultures treated this discovery as serious business rather than casual indulgence. Restricted to specific people, wrapped in ceremony, governed by rules about who could do it, when, and why. The recreational, everyday version of smoking that feels so familiar now is, in the long arc of human history, a very recent and comparatively careless mutation of something that started as sacred technology. Every time you catch that first drift of wood smoke and feel something shift, you're responding to a discovery your ancestors made tens of thousands of years before anyone wrote it down. They didn't have a word for nicotine or cannabinoids or bronchodilators. They just knew that breathing this particular smoke changed something, and that the change was worth building a fire, a ritual, and eventually an entire relationship with the sky around.